I got to get with George because I'm not getting.
Hmm? No, just the tea bag away, but not in the purse. Um. No. Oh, he's not here. He's not here yet?
Is Alex Rizzo going to be here?
Oh,
Is Alex Rizzo going to be here for that?
I saw the. Oh,
No, I bet you.
okay.
I don't see him so far.
That, yeah, okay.
Is
Maybe
Rizzo
I
coming?
hear somebody.
His assistant had confirmed
Mhm.
it's the date, but I don't see him, so
We could push it back, I guess, till he gets here.
yeah. We'll leave it or we'll wait
Yeah,
till next
all right.
week.
We'll wait till next
time.
week if he doesn't.
Okay, are we all set?
Yes.
Anybody fully attending?
No, it's up.
It's fine. All right. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lowe.
Here.
Councilman Best.
Present.
Councilwoman Bravo. Here. Councilman Fahed.
Here.
There is a quorum present.
Okay, thank you. All rise, please, for an invocation from Councilman Fahed.
We pray for the agenda set forth before us this evening and ask that we be granted the ability to work together in harmony when there's honest disagreement and dissent. We ask for the strength to speak up when given the opportunity to speak and the patience to listen receptively and empathically when it's time to listen. We ask for the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues that we encounter and a keen sense of the welfare and needs of our residents. May we be reminded that we are not only leaders, but also servants, and that it's our responsibility to serve the common good of all the residents of Miami Springs. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, hello and welcome to our meeting of January 9th, the first meeting of 2023. So we're very excited to start off the new year with all of those of you that are present. We'll start with the awards and presentations, and we're going to defer the awards and presentations to a little later. We're waiting to see if Representative Rizzo can make it. If not, we'll schedule it for our next meeting.
He's on it.
He's on the way. Okay, wonderful. All right. So we'll stop our meeting when he gets here and get back to that.
Yes.
All right, let's go to open forum, and we have the esteemed thespian, Mr. Wakefield.
Ralph Wakefield, 255 Springs Avenue, Artistic Director of the Pelican Playhouse. And now for something completely different. For the first time in 24 seasons of the Pelican Playhouse, we're doing a mystery night. We have two shows. Our first act is comprised of all my youngsters, 9 to 14s, doing a play called The Mystery Club. And it's set in a middle school, and it's riotous fun, and they're having a blast with it. There's 25 of them. And I'm thinning out on top here, but we're going to get through it. It opens up on the 20th of May, and my lovely assistant just May 20th of January.
Yes.
And I wish it was May 20th of January. And my lovely assistant handed you all invitations that I would wish that you would honor. Simply call that number, tell us what night you're coming and how many tickets you need, and they will be waiting for you at the box office. The second act is called The Alibis, and it's my adults and my older teens. And well, I can't tell you because it'd be ruining the mystery, but it's mysterious and fun, and we're having a ball doing it. So please come. There you go. That's all I got.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
one more thing. Yes. Councilman Best is playing someone his own age in this, so I'm just saying,
Is
it's
there a death
it's not
scene
so
again
much of
in
a
Shakespeare?
stretch. Yeah.
No, Mr. Wakefield's absolutely, I know we're not supposed to speak in open forum, but I think in this case, we can weigh the rule, lay the rule. It's a great piece. It's so much fun doing it, and there are some exceptional actors in it. And if you come, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's all I'm saying.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
exceptionally, it's just excellent.
And Happy New Year to you one and all.
Ralph.
Same to you.
Councilman Fahed, you survived the first day of school returning.
Sure did.
That's a
Yeah.
victory.
I'm back.
One more, do it again.
You got it.
All right.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do for the community. Okay, let's move to approval of the council minutes for the meeting of December 12th.
Through the chair, motion to move the minutes for the 12th of December. Second.
Any discussion? Call a vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. Let's see, we don't have any reports from the boards or commissions. Erica, while I think of it, could you follow up with the Educational Advisory Board? I know I'm hearing that it has had trouble, I
It's-
guess,
yes,
meeting this
having
past
the
year,
quorum,
so we
yes.
need to try to facilitate it for them with whatever they need, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see, public hearings, we have none. So we're going to move right to the consent agenda. Are there any items that someone wants to pull out for discussion? Okay, I did have two items I wanted to pull out. Well, actually, the Meridian, item D. We're going to, Jose and Max, are you going to talk about that? Or is that just if we have questions about it?
Oh, that's just, if you want to pull that and discuss
Okay.
that, we can do that.
All right, well, I wanted to pull item B for discussion. And is there a motion for the other items?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb,
Aye.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. For item 9B, I just wanted to ask to kind of clarify so that our residents also, I know we've been talking so much about the parking issue downtown, and this is a parking study that we had applied for a grant to do a parking study, and part of this was a recommendation from the Business and Economic Development Task Force. So William, could you just, for the sake of our residents, give a brief summary of?
You want to read the memo into the record?
Sure. This is a recommendation by the professional services that council award and enter into a professional services agreement with Bear Associates and that Consultings, Inc. as the highest rank and most qualified respondent to the city's request for quotes for the Miami Springs parking analysis. Do you want me to read the discussion as well?
Yes, please.
Yeah, give them a background.
On October 24th, 2022, the city emailed 18 consultants the request for quotes for the Miami Springs parking analysis. On December 6th, 2022, the city received 3 responses to this RFQ. On December 15th of 2022, the city held a selection committee evaluation meeting where responses were reviewed and evaluated by a selection committee comprised of Tammy Romero, Assistant City Manager, George Ferrer, the Director of Quality Control Partner with B&A, and George Santine, the Business and Economic Development Task Force Board Member. The selection committee ranked the 3 consultant firms, which are attached in Attachment A, and the 3 consultant firms were shortlisted via highest ranked scoring criteria in which Bear Associates or THA Consulting, Inc., which is an Attachment B, was considered the highest ranked and most qualified respondent. Following in the second place was Walker Consultants, and lastly, in third was the Cordino Group, Inc.
And
Bear
Tammy,
Associates,
If you could just maybe just summarize what the parking study, like the parameters of this study. I know we had discussed it by phone. You had kind of filled me in.
Well, let me, what's gonna happen tonight after, if this is approved, we will issue a purchase order to the company. We will have, at that point, we'll have a face-to-face meeting with them, bring them to the city so that we can take them around the areas that are involved in the downtown area. But before they start, we will have a workshop, probably at the senior center, the dining room, which is a large area, where we're going to invite not only the task force members, but business owners from the downtown area, residents. And they'll run the show. They've already explained in their proposal about getting citizen and business owner feedback on what they want to see in the parking study. We gave them more or less a general scope of work. At this workshop, we're going to go to the nitty-gritty of what it is that we want. I know there were some task force members that gave some examples of what they wanted to see in a parking study. So that's going to be shared at that workshop. And once we develop that on the scope of work, then they'll begin doing their analysis.
Okay.
Um,
I just wanted to make sure, since this has been such parking discussed so much, excuse me, I forgot to turn off my ringer. Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mayor. William, I'm just sitting here thinking out loud, as I normally do. How much money have we spent on parking studies in this town?
As a city, I don't know about actual.
It's
parking.
obviously it's not a fair question, but an awful lot, right?
It's been more general. It's not just geared towards parking. We've had some analysis of like the Kohler, is it the Kohler? That was done years ago.
Yes.
We've done a lot of studies about development of the downtown area,
Right.
and the commercial
It's been
business.
for specific, various specificities
Right.
that
Right. But I'm not aware of any specific just parking study for the downtown area. I think this is the first time that we've done something like.
But we
this.
have benefit, of course, of the Lambert study and the Cordino Group study and all the.
Councilman, in this, I want to clarify that this is a grant. This is.
No, I know.
We applied for a grant to do this. And again, as far as past studies, I think I've made this comment before. I don't know why past studies were not implemented. It was different councils, and I'm sure they had their reasons. All we can do is go forward. I think everyone on this council right now is pretty committed to trying to find some resolution to the residents and business owners' concerns that they've voiced about parking.
Mayor, what was the most recent study that looked at, and maybe as a more general scope of work, but what was the most recent study that looked at parking even as a component in the central business district?
The only one I know of, and that wasn't the city, that was the developer doing the town
Right.
center project, where there was a traffic study and a parking study done specific to that one project.
Right.
But
For that one project.
right, but as the entire downtown area, the CBD district, I'm not aware of any specific parking study.
But not even parking. When's the last time of like,
I can tell you that.
Jordan.
Was it when I was on the council about
Don't-
2009, 2010?
yeah, I
And
mean,
remember-
a lot has changed since then. So,
No. Well, has it really?
yeah, it is.
Miami Springs has changed since then. I mean, in some respects, but not by and large, it hasn't. And that was George, I think that was the same one that were at the head of Curtis Parkway going down to the south. Remember, it was like $32,000 a parking spot they wanted, and we all said, enough of it.
It was
Yeah.
expensive.
What they wanted then.
Yes.
To the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to see that I think we had budgeted 80,000 and we got in a proposal for 70,000. So originally the city was going to come out 30,000 and we're only going to come out 20. I think they're going to still negotiate with the terms, or it's finalized already.
No, there's no
No,
negotiations.
Okay, perfect. And then we spoke about earlier, you said 5 minutes ago that we have an option for a survey for like,
3,500?
I think it was 3,200. I wanted to see if they would be able to include that in in the agreement for 70. I don't know if we can push it a little bit.
Well, we-
Got a separate-
Correct.
Why
I
not?
mean, we were gonna include the surveying, obviously, because it would be the benefit to the city to do so, but yeah, we can ask them to try to include it, but not charge us.
Yeah. And then I don't know what on page 8, item 11.2. Because I'm not too familiar with this. It says, because things do happen and we're always looking at both ends. It says, in the event of any litigation arising out of this agreement, each party hereby knowingly, irrevocably, voluntarily, intentionally waives its rights to trial by jury. Can you explain that a
Well,
little bit?
They can put whatever they want in their proposal. They haven't gotten an agreement yet. They have not
Okay.
gotten the professional services
No,
agreement.
it is, I believe it is attached. But that's standard language in the city's agreements. We generally waive our right to a jury trial. It's
Okay,
generally more efficient for all parties involved.
And faster.
Yes.
okay, that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to accept 8B?
I do have
Aye.
a question of clarification. On the survey issue. The 70,000 that is being approved or is proposed for approval does not include the survey, correct?
Correct.
Let me look.
I didn't say that it did, no.
I think the survey was an additional like $3,000 off the top of my head. So if we wanted the survey included, and I don't know if council wants that, do you want to increase the amount, the authorized amount to include the survey?
I think the councilwoman wanted to see if we can negotiate that as part of
Hmm.
the 70,000.
Okay, so you don't want to increase it. That's what I want to clarify. Okay. So we'll
I mean,
only
it-
proceed with the
it's
survey.
there, It's there, the money's there, so if we want to approve it later on, we can,
Yes.
so.
So it's $67,500
includes
plus $3,200. So it.
Okay.
it does-
So it doesn't-
It's
That includes the
inclusive.
survey.
So it does include the survey.
Where's the 67 pages?
Go to the pricing proposal. It's on
The
page,
last page of the pricing.
it's actually page 278
Okay.
of the agenda
Thank
out of 3. On 278, you'll see the pricing proposal.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to motion to approve 9B.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Mm-mm.
Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loeb.
Aye.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Behet.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just saw that our highly esteemed state representative Rizzo is here. So hello, welcome. Come on up. We're so glad you could join us.
Mm.
Would you like to say a few words? Yes. Hi.
Hello, hello, everyone. Good evening. My legislative aide Bethany and myself
Hi,
are
Bethany.
pleased to be here. Thank you very much for having us tonight. Happy New Year. I hope all's well. And well, we've kind of wanted to just come in and give you a sort of a rundown of what's going on as of now. And then we also had a request. And so we're very proud and happy to go ahead and get that. We've begun our committee weeks. And so with the assistance of our colleague in the other house or the other chamber, excuse me, someone that you know very well, Senator Avila. We've begun to go ahead and file our appropriation requests, our bills. We're working to make sure that Miami Springs is remembered and that your needs and the needs of all of its residents are heard up in Tallahassee. And so we're working very hard towards that end. With that, I'd like to, again, offer, we have a great relationship anyway, but certainly anyone that requires or needs some assistance, wants to ask us anything, our office hours remain open, totally open in person, 37th Street and 12th Avenue in Hialeah, but also through email and phone numbers. And you know, we're easily accessible and always available for anyone that's at the dais that works for the city or is a resident of the city. And so with that, any questions, we'll answer any that you'd like.
I think, just on my part, I just want to thank you, Representative Rizzo, for, I can tell you from the moment he started representing us, he's been so available, so eager to learn what our situations are, what, what's important to us at the state level, but also at the county level, at the local level, and constantly offering guidance, which, is extremely valuable from our state representative, and working with us to try to resolve issues. So I am just, and I wanted to say, and this is the first time that I know of it, he reached out to us and said he would like to have a seal of the city of Miami Springs for his Tallahassee office
Aw.
and his Miami office. So I think that's just speaks volumes about how his intentions to, to represent our city, how much he values our residents in our community. And so I want to thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything before we go
Welcome.
forward? We'll take a photo.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And we look forward to seeing you. We'll come visit you in Tallahassee to discuss the appropriations, but
We
greatly-
will have days, and
Oh,
at
okay.
some point, I imagine it'll be probably the first week of April. But certainly, you get to come and host what the resident or the representatives and senator that represent Hialeah. We have a big event, as you know, it's called a
The
Taste
big
of
one.
Hialeah, but really it's kind of a taste of Northwest Dade where we roast a lot of pigs. We have a competition amongst cities, and please, the gauntlet is going to be thrown by Hialeah and Hialeah Gardens to its neighboring cities, Virginia Gardens and Miami Springs, to have a contingent come up and roast a pig, Miami Springs style, whatever that may be, and throw in, your names in the hat to see who does
I'm
the
sure
best.
we can, there's somebody in our city can roast a pig better than anywhere
working
else
on
in
that,
Dade
yeah.
County. Just have to find it.
Thank you. And yes, and the seals, I'm, along with my staff, with Carmen Chu and Bethany, we're very proud to represent Miami Springs, Virginia Gardens, Hialeah, and City of Miami. So we've asked for the seals from each of those municipalities to proudly put on our wall in our office here in the district, but also back in Tallahassee, so that everyone that does come in, regardless whether they're lobbying, if they're a professional lobbyist, if they are just a citizen that's lobbying on any issue, or any of our colleagues that serve up there and work up there, that they know this is home for us and that it's serious, that every single day that we get to work, we're reminded, and we want to remind everyone around us, these are the people that we serve.
And Bethany, thank you. I know I reach out to you a good bit and you're always accessible and available. So it's greatly appreciated. But I wanted to mention just even before the seals, Representative Rizzo came to visit Miami Springs and we went on a little tour. And when we went to the senior center, he spoke with Joan Cavalier, who provides the art classes for the seniors, and saw the artwork that's on the wall of the art room. And right off the bat, he asked her, can you send some art up to to Tallahassee, so we can post some of the seniors' artwork up in Tallahassee, which, was just, they were thrilled to do that. And I thought that was very thoughtful.
Yeah. So I ordered frames for them, and then we're gonna put a collage on the wall, and so I'll send you a photo. when it's
Oh,
done.
that's
thank
wonderful,
you.
Bethany. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go. We'll go forward and photos taken. Take one.
You know the smell that leaves in my house?
Worth it.
Are you offering to cook the cake?
No, she's got something very special. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
For all of your
All right,
support.
and we'll be looking forward And we'll be looking forward during days for sure. All right. Thank you all very much. Take care. Good evening.
Take care.
Representative Rizzo, just-
Yes.
I just found out that days is actually March 29th and 30th,
Oh, is it? Okay.
which is a week before our election.
What is
March 29 and
March
30.
29th.
Actually,
It
I
is?
was,
Okay.
a party and
Great.
well, actually, I was going to bring it up that we might try to go up earlier before days. As
Yeah, if it
our
is
own
interfering, that's
delegation
fine, but the invitation is open, you're there. Like I said, certainly my office, and I know I speak for the senator, when I say that our offices are open anyway. But ahead of time, please let us know. We'll set up appointments with other members and the speaker certainly, I could speak for the House of Representatives. The speaker does want to meet with you and your contingent when you get up there. Cool. Okay.
We'll make
Thank
that
you,
happen.
All right. Thank
Representative.
you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for the alert,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Alonso. Thank you. I didn't know. Take care.
All right,
care.
thank you, Representative Rizzo, so much. And the invitation's still open. I know you wanted to visit the senior center one day, so you let us know. They'll be thrilled to have you visit. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay, so we'll continue with the agenda. We are
90.
9D.
You were going to pull it for discussion.
Oh, I decided not to. I just pulled
Okay.
B,
Gina,
9B.
Okay.
So.
We
um,
voted on that, right? So.
Okay. We have no old business or new business, so we go to other business, and it's a discussion on the proposed charter amendments.
It's on. Good evening and happy new year, Mayor and Council. It's nice to be back. So sometime over the summer last year, we talked about presenting a charter amendment to the voters to relate to partial terms of office. So at the January 23rd meeting, we'll be presenting you with a resolution that actually contains the ballot title and the ballot question for that item, and you'll be voting on that. Our deadline to send that resolution to the Supervisor of Elections is February 2nd, whatever that Friday is of the first Friday in February. So that's why we're doing it at the January 23rd meeting. And so when obviously we knew that we were going to be bringing this to you, and we found two things in the charter that we thought were worthy of your consideration. The one is an issue that we have repeatedly experienced with individuals who've vacated office early to run for another office. But a vacancy can, as you know, can be created in any number of circumstances. There can be a resignation simply because somebody decides they don't wish to serve anymore, or they're unable to serve. You can have a death while in office, or you can have what we've experienced so much, a resignation to run for another office. So we wanted to provide the council with an opportunity to consider whether you would like to present the electorate with a charter amendment to address how you address vacancies. The memo that I circulated to you all yesterday, and my apologies for sending it so late. It was my intent to send it much earlier, but we wanted to get it as clean as possible and give you some good language to look at. So this memo addresses two different things: filling of vacancies as well as qualifying requirements. I'll talk about the vacancy process first. Your charter, as you know, currently provides a process for how you fill vacancies, and it's really dependent on a 120-day timeframe. And what do I mean by that? When somebody, when there's a vacancy in office and more than 120 days remain in the term of that person's office, you currently appoint someone and you call for a special election. Obviously, there are times where we don't do that because it's impractical. The 120 days don't exactly work out, which is what we just recently experienced, where at the time of Councilman Vasquez's vacancy, there were in fact more than 120 days remaining in his term. But by the time we were going to appoint someone to fill the vacancy, there were less than 120 days remaining before your April election. So that's why we didn't call for that special election. But had we had both of those facts in play, in other words, having more than 120 days remaining in the term as of the date of the vacancy and more than 120 days before your next citywide general election, we would have had to have a special election. When you have less than 120 days remaining in the term, your charter currently provides that you appoint someone to office and there's no special election. There's a caveat if you have more than 2 members on council whose seats become vacant and you have more than 2 appointments. I don't go into that here because I'm not suggesting any revisions. I don't think it's necessary at this time. But what we have offered to the council are a couple of options for you to consider. The first option, let me take a step back. We looked at how a variety of cities across Miami-Dade County approach filling of vacancies. And there's all sorts of ways to address it. I don't suggest that one way is better than another. Each city is unique and has different legislative policies and goals. So I'm not going to cast judgment, good or bad, on any of the other cities, how they handled it. But we wanted to provide you with 3 options, 3 models, so to speak, of how you might deal with vacancies, in addition to how you currently have it. So the first model is that vacancies are filled by a majority of the council members who remain. But if you can't confirm a nominee, then a special election has to be called during a specified timeframe. That's the first model. And what we've done is we've provided you with language for each of these models in the memo so that you would see what the charter, if it were amended to provide for that, whatever that model calls for, what the charter language would actually look like. So with model number 1, we would eliminate basically everything that you have in your charter with respect to vacancies, and we'd simplify it to provide that a vacancy filled, a vacancy on the council would be filled by appointment by the remaining members on council, with the appointee serving until the next regularly scheduled city election. And I failed to include the word city there, but we could make that the next regularly scheduled city election or the next regularly scheduled city or countywide general election. However, if the council is unable to fill the vacancy and no regular city election or general election, if you wanted to add, is scheduled to occur within 6 months following the occurrence of the vacancy, then a special election would be called. So model 1 leaves it in your hands. If you can agree on who to appoint, great. It doesn't take into consideration how long is left in the term. So under this example, you should be aware that you could have someone who's elected at your April 2023 election, for example. Something tragic could happen, or they could decide in May that this wasn't for them and they resign from office, and you have somebody who really has 2 years remaining in their term. Under model number 1, you would be filling that vacancy by appointment, assuming you can all agree, or the 4 of you who remain agree. And then there would be no need for a special election. You could have the option, if you can't confirm someone, to have the special election, and that could occur either at the next city election, which I'm not sure how sensible that is if there's 2 years remaining, or you would have a special election, or you could have it at the next general countywide election, which, because of the timing of the city's elections on odd numbered years, it doesn't necessarily coincide with countywide general elections. So that's model number 1. Model number 2 is more akin to what you currently have. In fact, it's nearly identical, but what it does is it draws a distinction. Instead of using 120 days as your cutoff, it increases it to 6 months. So 120 days being 4 months, increasing it to either 6 months or 180 days. In speaking with some of you, I used the example of we think of 120 days as being somewhere in the ballpark of November to December prior to an April election, as opposed to April I'm sorry, August. I think if we think about it in terms of months, I think that's the easiest way to approach it. If you have a vacancy under model number 2, if you have a vacancy that occurs within 6 months of your April election, then you would simply appoint someone.
Mhm.
If there's more than 6 months that remain in the term, then you would have a special election. You would appoint someone, but you would also have a special election because there's more than 6 months that remain. So that's model 2. It's effectively, again, the same as what you currently have. It just increases the time from 4 months or 120 days to 6 months.
I have a question. How soon can you get a special election
So
and run? Can you do that within the 6-month period? Strikes me as yes.
the answer is yes.
Okay,
Um,
so then that's reasonable.
Coordinating an election is always dependent on the supervisor of elections.
Sure.
And I think the clerk would agree with me in saying that the county supervisor of elections tends to be very cooperative
Mhm.
in helping cities get a date that they want, but they do request at least 90 days.
Yeah,
to
but if
have
we've
the
got,
election.
if we've got 6 months or more of a term that
Mhm.
an appointee is in, it doesn't make sense to appoint them for that much longer, just my opinion. And then we could talk to the supervisor of elections within those 6 months, we can get a special, I mean, those are circumstances I think that they
Right.
would agree that, we get a special election going. So I think 6 month is a sweet spot there in terms of time.
Especially considering that you have 2-year terms.
Right.
Other cities have a longer time frame, and or some of them even have 6 months when they have a 4-year term. You're unique because you do have the 2-year terms. So I think 6 months, you're always going to have, I don't want to say always, but you're going to have a situation perhaps where perhaps 6 months is August. August is your cutoff,
Right.
and somebody resigns or there's a vacancy in office in July.
That's the issue with 120 days. You get, even if you come in November, right? Like what happened with Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
right? His resignation was effective November, 120 days, right? If the way it's worded now, you got 120 days and then like you're scrambling, you're not going to have an election January, February, March, when there's already an April election coming. So I think the 6-month period is the right amount of time. We're appointing either way, but we're either appointing till the end of the term, we're within 6 months,
Right.
or we're appointing until we get in a special election, no later than those 6 months.
Right.
Is
These
the
are,
wording,
pretty, go ahead, Councilman. Go ahead.
is the wording in our charter still that we have to have the election within 30 days or something like that,
Yes.
which is
Which is
unrealistic.
Right.
We
it's-
can never
it's
do that.
correct. So we
So
would actually be.
We have to
changing that.
change that anyway.
Right.
Even if we did nothing, and I do want to clarify, if we did nothing, we still would not be able to do it within 30 days unless the world changes completely at
Oh,
the state and
it's-
county
It's
level.
impossible.
What would
Um,
have to
it's
happen
impossible.
for that?
So we always have to be practical in our approach and
No,
work with what we have.
And we also want to abide by what the citizens
charter,
want, what
right.
what our charter says. And what it says now, it's impossible. And I know that because we've been
Yeah, we've
in
been
that
down this road
situation
a
several
couple
times.
Yes.
So
Yes, which is why after, I've been with the city now, this is 23, going on 6 or 7 years. It's happened 3 times while I've been on
Yep.
as city attorney. So I think 3 times is enough to at least have the discussion of whether we want to make a revision here.
Well, something that I'd like, and I'm not necessarily, because I really haven't thought this out, but I'd just like to throw it out there, trying to be practical while Heidi's explaining all this, is that the most likely situation that we'll find if someone is resigning, God forbid that it's because of health issues or, they have to move away or whatever, but if they're resigning is for a county seat, which is May.
Right.
They have to resign by May. So even the 6 months then would still not be sufficient. Of course, that's almost a year. The election is in April and by the end of May, I think. So say June 1st.
Mhm.
So perhaps, and I haven't thought this out a lot, but it may be, if we want to avoid these kind of situations again, because the issue is this, if they resign, and here we are, thinking the possibilities, but obviously when this has happened recently several times, we have to consider that it could happen again. And we're trying to, to be as seamless as possible in running the council. If there isn't a county election that August, when they resign, then actually we have to hold an election, which is costly. We would
So-
have to hold a special election, not with a, now would there be a November election then? I
So,
get
so
confused
there's a
with the years.
caveat there. And the example that you're using is directly on point with the situations we've experienced. Remember that most of the times we are receiving the resignation in May, but the effective date of the resignation can be immediate
Different.
or it can be deferred.
Mhm.
So with Councilman Vasquez, when he resigned, he sent in his resignation by law in May, but it was effective in November. So because of the way things worked out and the timing, it resulted in not having to have an election and having an appointment instead. But if you recall, when
Council before
council
that.
member Zapata resigned to run, she resigned, and I think her resignation was either immediate or near immediate. So under the charter language, we did have to call for a special election. And we made it coincide. It was a special election for the city because as I've explained, any election that isn't your general city election is a special election. It's unique to the city. It's not a scheduled thing. So we had to call a special election, and it coincided with the county's, I think that year it was the primary election. So that's how we handled that.
But if there isn't a primary, that, I guess there would always be a county because it's
Even.
right,
Right.
okay, so, all right. So either way, should they resign as early as as would be necessary,
Mhm.
say in May,
Right.
then we would just tag on with a
county
an
And
primary
that
election in August.
Councilwoman Zapata's was my election, right? So she resigned in May. Had we had the 6 months, it would have taken us to November, right? We wouldn't have had to,
There would have been more than 6 months.
but if
I'm
if we
sorry,
had the 6 months, right? Like if we could go back, it was in May, right? So June, July, August, September, October, November, the 6 month that we're proposing in the second model,
Mm.
that would have, we wouldn't have had to do a special election.
we still would,
Yes.
because remember, we're not
Right,
counting to
right,
November, we're
right.
counting
It's a
to
special,
April.
right.
We're counting to it's how the 6 months
Right.
or the 4 months
It's
that
a
you
special
currently
election.
have
Right,
relates to how much time is pending in the term of office.
right.
Okay, so when Councilmember Zapata resigned,
You still would have had to do it.
we,
Mhm.
under our current charter, and if we were to change it to increase it to a 6 month term, we
Mhm.
would still have to have a special election because more than 6 months remained in her term.
And Erica
I-
or Heidi, can you give us or William, an idea of, to have a special election, what is the cost to the city?
Oh,
A standalone,
A
a
standalone. not-
standalone, no,
right,
not
right. When
attached to
something
the
like this happens,
county.
that then we have to,
If it's standalone, for instance, our April election, it runs between $30,000 to $35,000.
32 is what I
and if
thought.
we throw it in with,
And if
should
we
someone resign.
Tag on to the
but-
county, it's
18?
probably about 10,000, 10, 12,000.
12,
Yeah,
That's what I remember.
yeah.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I have a question, just I'm learning too for clarification. The example of resigning in May, but effective in November,
Mhm.
is there a way that we can change it where you resign with us if you're gonna run for office in May? Like it would be effective the day of the letter instead of providing an
So-
effective day, so we already have the 6 months.
So that's a state law
Um,
provision. So the resign to run law isn't a local law, it's a state law.
Mhm.
And it provides the option for candidates. Frankly speaking, when I've spoken with many people who've contemplated this, whether they've done it or not, they've all felt that they wanted to extend their resignation and make it later instead of immediate, because they were really trying to avoid causing the city to have a special election.
Well, no, I would say it in meaning so that we can tag on to one of the primary elections,
That's the
like how we had in November. They have to.
So-
choose it.
Any
law-
time between when
Yeah.
they have
The
to
law-
resign till when.
We don't, we
the
have a
new position
choice
would take
then
place.
when to have the election. The problem right now is our charter states 30 days.
Mhm.
If we change the wording to what we say, then we can appoint somebody for 6 months and then still have that special election even
time?
outside of that 6 months.
And I think the key to the 6 months is like, if you play this out, right? Like you don't want somebody to be appointed in November because of a resignation like Victor. And then be inside of 6 months and have to like have an election and then there's election coming right behind it, right?
Mhm.
Like you don't want it to be too soon. 6 months is a good buffer and 6 months is also a good threshold. Like beyond that, that's way too long to just have an appointment
Yeah.
and then just have some type of special election that you tag on.
Yeah, I think through the chair, one thing that was said earlier is kind of salient here to the point is the even versus odd year of our deal and what the county and what most other levels of office that one would run for would be probably an even year. Keep in mind now that Victor's has been the only member of council that has ever left council and ran for something other than school board. So that's something to think about. It's always the school board. So whatever the school board has its primary or run for elections in August, right?
It does, and I think the practical effect is still almost the same. There might be a week difference
Yeah.
in terms of if I think that the county commission and school board are sworn in and they take office, their terms begin either a day or two apart.
It's right
Within a
there.
week of
It's
each
right
other.
there. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
so it
Veda.
doesn't
Yeah.
make much of a difference.
Right.
The 120 days, it does start cutting it close
Right.
because you are dealing with your April election being so soon.
Mhm.
Right.
So like I started, there's a lot of ways to address this, and there's not necessarily a perfect way. I think that one of the things, as we're sitting here talking about it, you could have a scenario where you say, if there's less than 6 months remaining in the term, you simply appoint. And if there's more than 6 months, you appoint and call for a special election.
Okay.
Right.
That's what.
That's model number two.
It's
That seems to me that it's closest to what we already do, but it gives us, I mean, we need to clean
A
up the
buffer.
language about like you have to have it done in 30
Yes.
days.
Yeah.
But I think the 6 months gives us a good point of reference.
And
Yeah.
and I know not all of you have it in front of you right now, but the way that the language would read in the charter, we have a draft. I'm not saying it's final,
Mhm.
but we have a draft in the memo. It's on the top of page 3 of the 5-page memo.
Mhm.
And you can see the strike through and underlined there. It
Mhm.
provides that if there's less than 6 months remaining in the unexpired term, and this is just following the language that you currently have, or if there are less than 6 months before the next regular city election, then you appoint. And so there is a distinction. It gets somewhat technical. You're looking at, it's an either or situation. Either you have 6 months or less remaining in the term, or there's less than 6 months before the next regular city election. Where I think it gets, you can be creative is with I think the 6 month remaining in the unexpired term
Mhm.
is always going to be dependent on when the vacancy occurs.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what makes sense.
Right.
But the second part of that, or the part that's related to 6 months before the next regular city election, well, is it 6 months from when the council is appointing someone, or is it 6 months from when the vacancy occurs? And that's not necessarily clear in the text of the charter. So we've taken the position, I think, in this most recent example with Mr. Vasquez, as well as others, that the 6 months, the 120 days was dependent on when you were appointing.
Mhm.
Obviously, you shouldn't be delaying in trying to make the appointment. But in Mr. Vasquez's case, we had a situation where there were more than 4 months,
3 months.
more than 120 days
Mhm.
remaining when his vacancy occurred. But by the time we got to appoint, there were less than 120
Mhm.
days. So we didn't have to have the special election.
Right.
So that's model number 2.
Mhm.
And I think that there's sort of consensus around keeping it as you have it, just maybe increasing the 120 days to 180 or 6 months.
I say 6 months.
Um,
And I think the goal, I think we all agree the goal is just to make it a little more practical and possible to comply with, and to have a plan so that when this happens again, we're not struggling to figure out, do we have to have an election, for a month or two? I know we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time with that
And-
discussion. It makes no sense.
Right.
it may require striking the language about when the city election is scheduled and just leaving it plainly at, is there more than 6 months or less than 6 months?
That's key.
Okay.
Period. And just striking that other language because it's really added confusion.
Yeah.
Model number 3, which I simply provide to you for your consideration, where model 1 and 2 deal with vacancies of any kind. Model 3 leaves your charter as you have it, but adds a subsection D as in David, which is, it mirrors what the county charter has. And the county amended its charter a couple of years ago due to a resignation on the county commission, which was a resign to run situation.
Mhm.
And the county commission had to appoint someone instead of having the electors vote the successor into office. So the county changed its charter, and the language is similar to what's in proposed subsection D. Thank you, Erica. So as you look through the memo on page 3 of 5, under model number 3, you'll see right in the center of the page some underlined language. This language is only intended to deal with vacancies that occur as a result of a resign to run situation. And what it provides is that, and I think somebody raised this question this most recent time. If we know about the vacancy, and let's just continue with the Victor Vasquez example, we knew about his resignation in May.
Mhm.
There was a primary and a general county election in August and November of 2022.
Mhm.
Why didn't we have an election to fill his seat at that time? And we couldn't do that because there wasn't a vacancy at the time. So there was no election to be had until the vacancy actually occurred
Mhm.
in November.
Right.
What this provision would do is it would allow us to accept the resignation, and it sort of goes to what you were asking, Councilman Bravo. It would allow you to accept the resignation in May, know that the vacancy is going to occur in November, but have a special election in either the August or November election. And whoever is elected at that election would take office on that vacancy date in November, and they would complete the term until April. So an option, it would only be for a resign to run situation. You're still dealing with a special election. What I think this one does is it gives you certainty that you are going to have a special election. It's going to occur at a certain time. And there's not going to be a discussion of whether you appoint someone or elect someone or both. It tells you what you're going to do. Now, it also only takes effect when the person has made their resignation effective after a countywide election. So in the Mara Zapata example, her resignation was effective before the countywide election. So we would still follow the process that we currently have in the charter.
Mhm.
We wouldn't have to use this proposed new section. This just gives you an option if you were to have the Victor Vasquez situation again.
But in the model number 3, we still need to change that wording of the 30 days.
Yes,
Having the election within 30 days, because that's still there.
it's still there.
We
It's
need
still
to,
there.
we can't, I mean,
We could leave it,
Yeah,
I-
but
I would
we
love to
can't, we
perfect it,
can't,
yes.
but we can't do it. So that's an impossibility.
It is an
So
impossibility.
let's make it something that we can do. And not,
By the way, and this is another option for you to consider. You could combine models 2 and 3.
That's what I was gonna ask. Can you put D into model 2? And then
Absolutely.
that would do it.
Yes, and you would have that option.
Like have the
of-
6 months, but have that option to be able to take advantage of an election.
Depending on the story.
I think that provides us the flexibility that we need with, obviously if someone has to resign for other reasons and it's immediate, we
Mhm.
have that 6-month period.
Mhm.
But in experiencing what we've had recently, and I think it's happened, at least that I know of, 4 times
Well,
within the past, not that.
Well, Danny Espino was
Dan-
Danny was a
and-
first. Yeah.
and then, so, having a plan that works better instead of this 30 days. And
No
they,
doubt.
they tell us when they resign and then we can
We know what to
adjust for
do.
that. We will pay for that.
Yeah, it gives us the option. Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
So on this issue, and as I shared with some of you ahead of the meeting, if you tell me this evening, Heidi, we don't want to make any of these revisions, we recognize that there's an issue, but we've resolved it in the past and we've worked within the constraints and wording of our charter, I'm okay with that. But I would be remiss if I didn't share that there's another way to do this. And if you want to send it to the electorate, you can. You have a plethora of options of when you send this to the electorate. I was thinking to include it on your April election simply because we had talked about the partial terms of office question.
Right.
And I thought, if you're already sending one, let's just send a few more.
Mhm.
And
Heidi, what do you need now? This would be for, would it be for us to give you direction as to which one of these we'd like, and then you would prepare it for the next meeting?
it would have to be for next.
Yes,
week.
Yeah, it
and
would have to
so
be, yeah.
Okay,
the reason, if you want it on the April election, it would need to be for the next meeting, and we would need to adopt a resolution at the January 23rd meeting, because we do have a February 2nd deadline with the supervisor elections.
okay.
So
It's- I'm hearing from what I'm hearing, unless someone has, has something they haven't voiced, is that we pretty much all feel comfortable with the 6-month, the combination, the 6-month, but then allowing for, if we happen to know that there's a resignation way ahead of time, that we can prepare for that and allow for a general an election so that our residents can decide who they would like to serve in that position during that time. And
So-
that's more likely for something that, is a longer period of time than within the 6 months.
Well,
So,
Mayor, that would be model 2. We would include D from model 3.
Yeah.
Into that. And,
Right.
and we have to make sure that we clean up the language about the 30 days to have the election. Obviously, that would.
yes, and it is corrected in.
In Model 2.
Model 2. it is,
Right.
yes.
and
Yeah.
so, and Heidi, is that a consensus with everyone
Would be-
to
would be-
direct?
It would be my thought, yes.
Yes.
Everyone is comfortable. That way you could have that prepared
Yes.
for the next meeting. But I'm still unclear as to the residents, when they vote on this, they would vote on what because we're going to be signing a resolution.
So you're gonna sign a resolution, and I was going to bring you a draft, but I decided against it. What that resolution will have is the actual strike through and underline of the charter language. And it will also tell the supervisor of elections as well as the public what the ballot title in question is. So this is sort of like how a bill becomes a law,
Yeah.
how a charter amendment becomes a charter amendment and gets on the ballot. Like, how did this question get here? This is the nerd in me that gets excited about these things. The charter, when you make that decision on January 23rd, when you adopt that resolution, what you're doing is you're telling the supervisor of elections and the public, here's the ballot question and the title that we want to appear on the ballot in April.
Mhm.
So it's actually going to have the nice bold title as well as the question that the voters are going to see. Voters who are really doing their research will be able to see the strike through and underline, and they can always request a copy of it. It'll be on the city's website. But the actual ballot question that they'll have when they're at the polls or at home filling out their ballot is just going to be a 15 it can be an up to a maximum of 15-word title
Mhm.
and 75 words on
Mhm.
the question.
Hopefully in layman's terms.
So
Well, I
try
I think
very
that,
hard.
yes, and that'll be incumbent upon us before that to kind of explain why we're putting that on there to,
that's
you
what I
know,
was gonna
facilitate,
suggest.
right? And I think the city, you know, each of us on the council can try to get that information across when residents have questions so that they can understand,
Mhm.
you know, the reason for this, that it really is to run a little smoother when these situations occur.
And I
and-
think with more predictability.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I will create a model 2/3 version
Mhm.
and we'll have that question. So far we'll have the partial term of office question, and then we'll have the vacancy
Mhm.
question. And then the third one and this one is much simpler. We started with the most difficult one. The third one that appears as number 2 on this memo, it starts at the bottom of page 3. And really where I would draw your attention is to page 5 of the memo.
Mhm.
We've given you on page 4 different models from other cities. And what am I talking about? Miami Springs Charter has the longest qualifying period of any city in all of Miami-Dade County, including the county. You have a 60-day qualifying period, which I know our clerk absolutely loves. And I'm being very facetious when I say that. Qualifying at election time is a very stressful time for a city, not just for the candidates, but for the clerk's office, because there is a lot of paperwork and a lot of technical criteria that need to be met. And so 60 days is a very lengthy time for that process to be conducted. What we found after surveying the charters of the 34 municipalities in the county is that most cities have a 10-day qualifying period. So what we would propose is that you change your qualifying period to be more consistent with that of other cities and shorten it. Now, I know that there is a lot of hesitation and multiple people have asked me, well, Heidi, if we have a 10-day qualifying period, how am I supposed to get all of my signatures in order to qualify for office if I only have 10 days? That's actually a misconception. You can get your qualifying signatures or your petition signatures well ahead of the qualifying period. Whether we do anything now or not, you can get those signatures ahead of time. The clerk's office issues the election package months before the election. The qualifying papers are available. The packets, as you refer to them, are available for people to pick up and start collecting signatures, so long as they've opened their campaign account. So once the campaign account is opened, people can start collecting their signatures for the election. They don't need to wait until the actual qualifying period to do so. So assuming you were to change the qualifying period to a 10-day period, you could pick up your packet in, let's say, August of the year prior to the election, start doing your work, getting your ducks in a row, open your campaign account, let the clerk know that you've opened it, give her the paperwork that you've done so, and you can start collecting your signatures. Your signatures would be submitted to the clerk with your qualifying packet during that 10-day qualifying period. And during that period, she would send your signatures to the county clerk's office. They'll verify the signatures and they'll say yay or nay, these signatures are valid or not. I think.
But you just have to make sure that you have enough signatures, because if you're only going to be verified within those 10 days, like that only gives you like one turnaround, hey, you're short, and that's about it.
Well,
It
and
usually
the
takes a couple
county-
days,
the
like 2-3
turnaround-
days.
The turnaround time for it's excellent. Within a day or so, I already
You're already
know.
getting it.
Yeah, they give me a call ahead of time, candidate XYZ, they're missing, you advise them, and they always send me a document stating such. So
So
I always reach out to.
it strikes me that because of that misconception, it's important that we signal that to prospective candidates, that although the qualifying period doesn't open until, like start getting your packet, start getting, throw your hat into the ring, because you got to have it done and ready by the time the qualifying period opens.
And there's, and this happens not just in Miami Springs, but in other cities.
Yeah, if most
You
people,
have
if most
people-
cities do that, like they're not, you know.
This is not unique. You have people, candidates who will bring all their paperwork on day one to the clerk. They have everything together. All of their signatures are a match and they're ready to go on day one of qualifying. And then you have somebody who waits until the last minute and doesn't have their 50 or 100 signatures and doesn't get them verified in time. And so they're disqualified from running because they waited until the last minute. So I think there's some personal responsibility that needs to be taken into account as well. But I think that this is a period that would really just put this city in line with other cities and again, provide for more efficiencies throughout.
Mayor, I'm
So
in favor.
this, okay, well, I would like to suggest 14 days. I think 10 days is, still tight no matter what.
Is it 10 business days or
I
10
was gonna
calendar
say
days?
it's gonna be Monday through Friday,
So it's 10 business days. So that's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
right there.
But if you're
Okay.
adding,
Okay, so it'll
I'm
be
not sure if
14
it's-
days.
Pretty much.
are you adding an additional 4 days to?
Well, I would just, if it's 5 business days, so that's 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Well, it's technically.
Let's put,
It's a 10
It's 10
calendar days.
days.
So
And
it's
business days.
2 work weeks.
Mhm.
Monday through Friday,
mhm.
And then.
and then
through
another
Friday
Monday
again.
through Friday. Are you
Weeks.
adding another Monday through Thursday?
No, I think she
I
wasn't
think
sure.
he just wanted to make sure that
Right.
it was 2
Exactly.
weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah,
because
'cause-
obviously, a bank closes for a holiday and that cuts out, and then
But opening the campaign account can be done before the qualifying
Right.
period. So that's not
So
even,
another thing.
you've basically got a work week, a weekend and another work week.
Plenty.
You're looking at 12 days to get those signatures and you should have started beforehand anyways. So.
I don't know. many people
I-
that have started.
Right, I usually post
That
the
close.
campaign packet around July on the website, but that doesn't prevent anybody from coming in to
Come on up.
ask or get the packet or anything, so.
So are we going to say if we were to, say 10 days, it's 10 business days? I want to clarify that, not 10 days, because later on we'll come back and, 10 days, did we,
No, it's 10
or
days.
14 days, 2 weeks?
It is
Maybe
10
that-
It'll be 12 days.
The proposed language is on page 5
Mhm.
and it actually is, this period shall constitute a 10-day qualifying period.
Should we insert the
Okay, so
term?
that's not
It-
clear
it-
that
it-
Yeah,
it's 10
you wanted
business
to say
days.
a 10
And
calendar day?
Or
I'm
10
sorry, 10
business
business
days.
days.
I think
Yes.
that's where she's going with
And
this.
let me ask
I
you
agree with
this,
that.
because I know the stuff that comes later on. If there's 10 business days and one of those days is President's Day and it's a holiday.
Holiday doesn't count.
It doesn't count. No, we would roll over.
Okay.
And that's the
Right.
the
Okay.
process that's used now.
I want to make sure that,
Yes.
obviously, our residents, when they want to run, it's, and especially if they're running for the first time, there's a lot to learn to the process. And also, you don't want to feel like by the time you learn about it
there.
and figure out if you want to do it, there's only 2 days left. So, but I do think I am, our qualifying period is extraordinarily long. And most municipalities, I know some have the 4 days and, some have the 10 days or 6 days or something. So I think making it 10 business days, 10 business days is pretty reasonable.
Yep.
Okay, so this again would be consensus for Heidi to have it for us for
yes.
Favor.
January
With the
23rd.
change of to 10 business days,
Yes.
so that everybody, so
Got
it's
it.
in common
So we'll
language.
bring those 3 to you in one resolution, just so you know, it's one resolution that it has all 3 ballot questions
For next meeting.
for the next meeting. Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. Heidi.
perfect. That's
Excellent.
all I got.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Haiti.
Good.
We're gonna, or whoever's sitting on this council would be very happy next time this happens,
Yeah.
that we have a better plan
Done
in
this.
place.
So will the city attorney.
Yes, and the city clerk.
And the clerk.
Okay, so let's see, and the next agenda item is 12B, and that was announcing a city council town hall meeting to discuss the Business and Economic Development Task Force's report. We had at the December meeting when they presented their report, we said we would have,
Yep.
we had talked about a workshop, but I think a town hall meeting
Better.
would be better because we want to really encourage residents and business owners to to come to work with us on this and reviewing the task force made a lot of recommendations. And obviously not all of them can be implemented, but or some of them may be implemented, can be right away, and others may take more time, and others may not be possible at all because of other factors that impact them. But we want to make sure that the residents, business owners in the community are right there with us when we discuss it.
Mayor, if I can just for clarification from the clerk and legal side. I think what you're suggesting is a workshop, but with the ability to have public comments and feedback from the.
Yes, but I'd like to
Okay.
call it a town hall, because I think when we say workshop, sometimes with residents, they think we're just going to be working on something and they don't really realize that
Okay.
their input is valued, and that we want to encourage them to be there. And also the other thing is we had talked about instead of in January, I know we had just tentatively picked a date in January to give enough time to, that's next week. That's not enough
Yes.
time for residents to know about it and plan. So if we do it in February, it'll give us more time to make sure that everyone who wants to attend knows about it. We can
Yeah.
advertise it.
Mayor, if I might, I know that the clerk circulated that to us all. And I mentioned to her that I'll be out of town from the 4th to the 11th of February, so I wouldn't be able to be at the
So we'll
at the
do
second
it
one.
when
So
you
she
come
went to
back.
the 15th, and I'm good with that. So if everybody else,
Okay.
I can do that.
All right. If that's good with everyone, and that gives us time to make sure that, that the community knows about it. And there's a lot of recommendations that that we need to discuss. And I think having residents and business owners hear them and give their input will be helpful to all of us.
Unless you
Okay.
want to do it on Valentine's Day on the 14th. And what a great way to
Hey, Walt, don't push.
bring your significant other to a town hall.
Did we have a council meeting last year on the 14th?
Good.
We did. We're all about the grind around here.
We did.
Well, this year the meeting was the day before.
Oh, okay.
All
All
right,
right,
okay,
all right.
okay.
So the
Right.
15th, all right. Okay, so from there, we move to reports and recommendations. Our city attorney,
I've done enough recommendations for one night.
okay,
Enough recommending, huh?
city manager.
Just a couple of quick things. I wanted to thank Bob Best, Councilman Bob Best, for the excellent work he did at the Eastern Airlines Memorial Ceremony. It was a very emotional ceremony, and it went really well. I heard from a lot of people about what a beautiful event it was. And Bob did his usual great speech. And we had Mayor Kava attended, we had state senators attend, we had school board members attend, we had representatives attend. So it was well attended. There were a lot of people there, a lot of media. And I think it put the city out in a great light, especially with our new sign up there in the background for all those pictures. So I wanted to thank Bob and of course the rest of the council for supporting this project. Just wanted to mention to everyone that the pool will be closing January 12th until the 16th for maintenance, and they'll reopen on Tuesday, January 17th. I don't think it'll be a big hit because we're expecting 40-degree weather this weekend, so I don't think too many people want to use the pool. And finally, I want to congratulate Sam Chesser. He's the vice president of the new credit union that just opened up today for their first day of business. The Self-Help Credit Union out of Durham, I think, North Carolina. And they have something like 10 or 11 branches here in the state of Florida. So they open for business today, and welcome aboard a new business in our downtown area. And that's all I have. I think Tammy's got some events for you.
Yes, just beginning January 23rd, the vaccination site will only be open for Mondays only. With the exception of Martin Luther King, that they'll be closed that Monday. Also Wednesday, January 11th is the first Centennial Committee meeting at 6 p.m. in our City Hall Council chambers, and it's going to be open to the public. Mikey will be there, part of that committee. Saturday, the 14th also is the 7th Annual Community Health and Wellness Fair, is being hosted by the the Women's Club. And it's free from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 200 Westward Drive. And then there is pre-registration required for the rec camp out for this year, which will be happening on the weekend of January 28th and January 29th. And there is a charge for $30 per family of 4. And again, it's just pre-registration right now is going on.
About the daddy's order dance.
Oh, I didn't even look yet. Don't have that information.
You don't have that.
I think that's in February.
It's in
February
February.
11th, I
Yeah.
believe.
Daddy
I'll have it
daughter
for the next
dance.
meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
right. Okay, wonderful. And I want to invite and encourage families to go to the rec camp out. It's a lot of fun. You spend the evening out under the stars at Prince Field. You set up your tents, and I think they have movies, and it's just a great time. Yeah, it's really a nice annual, and the weather's nice during this time. So, and even if you can't go for the whole night, you can go and hang out for the evening and be there for the movies and the popcorn and with other people. So it's a great way to enjoy quality time with your family and friends here in Miami Springs. Okay, so let's do city council, and we'll start with our newest and oldest council member.
Well, I'm glad to be back up here, even if for a little bit. Thank you for a great meeting. Good night, and may the good news be yours.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
George's byline.
Councilman Fahet.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that the Miami Springs Historical Society and Museum on January 29th, which is a Sunday, they're going to be having their first annual antique car show. And they're doing that with Jumping Jack Productions, who normally does our car shows. They're going to be there's going to be food trucks, and kids will be able to play on the playground. And the way they're going to set it up, there's going to be prizes for the top 30 cars. People that submit their cars cost $20 to have their car be part of the car show. And overflow parking will be across the street in the parking lot of AIE. So there should be plenty of space for the cars. It should be a good time from noon to 4 on Sunday, the 29th. And then the proceeds obviously go to the Miami Springs Historical Society Museum.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Just Happy New Year to everybody. It's nice to serve with George. It's a different setting, refreshing. Let's see, we have the Miami Springs Women's Club Health Fair this Saturday coming up. I'm planning to be there. And I want to say thank you to Tammy and our city manager and our procurement department, because they did a lot of work in this last package. I just saw extra information there that I hadn't seen before. I love seeing, it maybe had been there before, but the ranking sheets for me were super helpful, the compare and contrasting. So just a little kudos on that. And I'm hoping to make it to the Centennial Committee. That'd be interesting to see. And that's it. Nothing else to report. Thank you, Maria.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. First off, I know that George heard this before the meeting tonight, and I had heard it previously. But former building official has recently passed away. Skip Reed. I don't know if any of you knew who he was. Long time in the city, and he passed away here a 3 days ago, wasn't it? Yeah. So, God bless him. We have, of course, as was mentioned previously in the meeting, the Business and Economic Development Task Force packet that has been released for review. I've read through it a couple of times already. Some interesting stuff in there. So I hope our meeting that we're going to have on the 15th is going to be productive. There's a lot of good recommendations in there. So William had mentioned before the Eastern Airline 401 memorial dedication. The city did an absolutely smashing job at putting this thing together. I mean, this was a showcase for Miami Springs. And I will mention here that William offered condolences from the mayor that she couldn't be here. She was out of town with family. And I seconded that when I got up there and I said, so instead of a pretty face and a mayor, you got me. That's how we let it off. So just to let you know.
Much more eloquent speech.
We tried to put a nice one together, but there was every TV station imaginable out there, including PBS was even there. So, and we got good coverage that night on the thing too. And a couple of days later, actually. William mentioned that the credit union has opened today, and that's much to do with Mr. Alonso to make that happen because there was a major glitch with the county and William interceded. And that was able to open today. So hats off to you, sir. And Ralph and Nancy were here earlier in the meeting to speak to the opening of the Mystery Night, which will be coming up on the opening on the 20th. And then we do it the second weekend. So the 20, 21, 22, and then 27, 28, 29. So 6 nights. And we sure hope you can all go. It's a really, really good piece. So, and with that, thank you for my time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. And I wanted to just voice that I had heard, and I'm sorry I was out of town. Sorry I missed it, but from so many people that attended the for Flight 401 memorial. It was just very touching, and you did an excellent job as always representing the city. I just wanted to thank our city staff, the recreation department, but everyone else in the city staff for all the things that went on over the holiday season. I mean, there were just so many activities. It was just fun. Our town just glistens with those lights, and you can't help but smile when you just see the bright lights and the festivities and all. And I know there was so much going on every single moment of the holiday season. They did a fantastic job. And that's part of what it is living in Miami Springs. There's just so much to do and just fun hanging out with your neighbors and your friends. So thank you for that. And with that, I just want to wish everyone a happy 2023. It's always a pleasure to serve with all of you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
Your family have good holidays, Jackie. I didn't even get to ask you.
Okay.
What?
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta go.
It's always hard for me.
It's the last one.
Yeah, I know. We gotta.
Did your family?
That's it.
Did you have?
Oh, man.
You going, George? You going?
Say goodnight.
Oh,
We did.
Yeah.
I've actually